Welcome to Push Go, a podcast presented by Plum, where we highlight the defining moments that impact how we live and work. Today, I'm joined by Ian McCready. He's the product management consultant at McCready Consulting, and he's the CEO of SelfCtrl, a nonprofit focused on helping people combat their addiction with gaming. Ian's from Southern California, and he has a lifelong passion for marketing and product development. Today, you'll hear how Ian made the decision not to work for his dream company, which led him down his entrepreneurial path to consult and to eventually launch SelfCtrl. Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rick. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, it's exciting to have you here. I was thinking back of having you on the show, and you probably are the only person I know, or at least been on the show, that started in a tech startup that became a unicorn.
Yes.
I mean, that's a claim to fame, you know? So I'd love to hear a little bit about how did you get into the fintech world or the tech world? How did that start out for you? Because everyone wants to hear the story of how you start out and work for the unicorn thing. How does that work out? So how'd you get started?
Well, my career did not start in tech. It didn't start in product management. I went to school for marketing.
Okay.
I picked marketing because it was a generic business degree. I knew I wanted to go into business and into the business world. Didn't want to do management, finance, some of the other, every company needs to sell. And I knew every company needed to figure out how to market their product. So I wanted to learn about marketing. I did 3 internships during college, and that's how I got full-time job offers.
And where was college? Where was school for you?
Long Beach State in California.
Okay, so you're a Southern California guy.
Southern California. I am a transplant to Northwest Arkansas here in the last few years, post-pandemic, remote working world, exploring options. But went to Long Beach State, studied marketing, went into marketing, ended up getting a marketing coordinator, entry-level position. Got poached by a friend of mine, my brother-in-law's friend, and he knew I was doing marketing, and I got to do something I didn't even know what they were doing, but I got to manage multiple $1 million ad campaigns. So banner ads on the internet, those annoying 728 by 90, 160 by 600, the little boxes there. Sorry for those, everyone. But it was a ton of fun. I got to use the creative part of my brain, got to use the analytical part of my brain, and it was a lot of fun.
So let's drop there for a second. So relationships matter. You're in the marketing world. You have the career steps you're going to progress along. And through your brother-in-law's friend, you had a connection. So speak to that. Were you actually actively networking, or is this one of those that you took the phone call and said, why not?
I took the phone call. Yeah, okay. It was absolutely, he had tried to get me to do an internship for his company while I was in college, and it fell through. I went in, interviewed, it fell through, but he liked me, and he wanted to work together. So he got promoted, started managing a team, and said, I want you on it. And I said, what am I doing? And he's like, he tried to explain it. I'm like, but what is it?
Yeah, it's so good.
And it didn't matter. It was a ton of fun. And it was one of the best bosses I ever had, actually.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I really, really enjoyed working for that company. And it was there that I actually got introduced to, we did online advertising for lead generation. So direct response marketing. So we're advertising for refinance, education, auto insurance.
So a fintech type of.
Yeah. So we did, we were moving into new markets or trying to test new verticals. And that's where I got to lead up the team that was doing the marketing and working with the product side and the tech side. And we launched a successful new vertical that was doing $1 million. We did over $1 million in revenue profitably the first year. And then we got it up to $1 million run rate a month. And it was a ton of fun. And then my executive team said, hey, you look a little bored. You've been doing this for 3-4 years. You've been doing well with it. Do you want to try product management And I went home and Googled what is product management.
So you truly didn't know what that word meant or that title or that role would be. Had you worked with people and didn't realize it that were in product management?
So I had, but we had the main person that I worked with on that side of the house was a GM, a general manager. So they didn't have any product people on that particular product or vertical. And I said, hey, do you want to come manage the product you just launched and help us launch a new one? Because we want to keep launching new verticals. So I was on the new product verticals team. And that's where I shifted into product about 8-9 years ago and loved it ever since. It's been a lot of fun.
Wow,
but it was after that experience I got poached over through a connection to a startup. So I got to work at a fintech that's now a unicorn. It didn't feel like a unicorn while we were there. It was a bumpy ride, the last minute funding type of things, and ended up moving from that fintech to go work for Experian, which is the largest credit bureau. And it was a ton of fun, but it was actually my boss who I worked with at that fintech, at that startup, that poached me over
relationships
to
again.
Experian.
Kind of took you through. So at that point in time, you had almost 10 years in the digital marketing or the tech world, 8 of it as a product manager at that time.
Yeah.
Now, was this pre-Haley, pre-marriage? Are you single now, or are you started a family at this point?
So started a family, got married while I was doing marketing and transitioned over. And it was actually one of the reasons I went to, and this maybe sounds counterintuitive, but one of the reasons I went to the startup was because it was in Orange County, which is I was in Los Angeles County, like Playa Vista, right in kind of the heart of West LA. It's a terrible place to raise a family. I know a lot of people that are raising family. It's great for you, but
it has its challenges.
It has its challenges. I wanted to move back down to Orange County, and my wife and I wanted to start a family at that point, which we did shortly after, a few years later.
Okay, so that was transition back. So you're doing this product management thing. You no longer had to Google it.
Did not have to Google it.
Yeah. Did you see it at that point in time as a long-term career, or is this still more of a building block you weren't sure yet? Did you think you'd hit your zone, like this is my place, or was it still experimental, wasn't quite sure?
So I went into it, and I referenced that boss at the time, one of my favorite bosses. He said, hey, what the heck? Learn a new skill, go try it. You can always go back to marketing. And so that's the approach that I took going into it. It was try it and see. And I ended up loving it. I think it works well for my personality type. And I love building things. Whenever you get asked, I don't know if you get asked hey, if you could go back and do any other career, that's what you get to spend your life doing. Architecture was always one of the ones that I was always interested in. I love the design of things. I love building. I love thinking up that. And so I think I get to do that in a more tangible sense without going through all the schooling for architecture. And I get to build products. I get to build experiences online, digital experiences that people enjoy.
I love that analogy for the folks that are looking at the business world, and you are more technical or process oriented as you think about the experience. I love that analogy of, people come in and out of doors a certain way, and you have a certain pattern of flow, of traffic flow. And that's the same thing from a technical standpoint. You have UI, UX, and how do you engage, and what does it look like? So I love that analogy for folks that said architecture may not be the route, but I'm kind of a bend for that. So you're at a zone. You're feeling like I've found where I needed to be. And use the word poach. So I recruited, poach. But the point being, in that world, you could have the next person ask you, the next person, you could continue to bounce around. But as you started to look at the career, we're kind of getting to that defining moment in your life that says, do I keep going to the next one, taking on more work, engaging, or do I kind of change the trajectory of my career? And so what was going on in your life at that point in time that you said, I may not keep going down the route I was going? Because this was a pivotal time in your career because you had a path in front of you.
Yeah, I think I've wrestled with that a lot, of thinking through, hey, going to different opportunities or looking at that, because product development has a natural cycle to it. You usually do a new product launch. Maybe you launch a new big set of features, whatever it may be. And then you start thinking about what's next. That's a little different if you manage kind of a ongoing perpetual product. But I had done a project specifically with Experian, large Fortune 500 company, and we were at one of those cycles. And it had been, I think, about 2.5 years, and we had re-platformed essentially their main consumer product. So all of the people, and I worked specifically for the UK and Ireland. So I got to travel to London quite a bit. I got to travel and work with and serve the people of a different country, which was a lot of fun. But we did that project, and I had a good relationship with my boss, and he gave me that kind of, hey, writing's on the wall a little bit. After this project, we had this US team spun up to help with the project because that team had experience in doing this. I don't know if that team is here in 12 months. And so I came to another kind of pivot point where, hey, I was talking to them about going to London. We were looking at that. I got asked by my boss's boss, are you interested in that?
Yeah, expat role would be pretty exciting at this stage in your career.
Yeah. It would be. We had a new baby at the time, so that was a big consideration. And I think it was about a month. I got asked that about a month after we found out we were expecting our second. So
it changes everything.
It did. And we literally, Aiden would have been born in the UK, in London. And so there was a lot to consider there. So I was starting to think, I was talking to teams on the North America side. So I was thinking about shifting within the same company to them. But when you start thinking about, hey, what's the next step for me? You start looking at other opportunities. And it was not too long after that a friend of mine who I've been working with called me up, and I ended up going and interviewing at a company, Blizzard Entertainment, which is also in Orange County. And I was living about 45 minutes away at the time. So let me correct, without traffic. So
that's a thing.
When I worked for the UK and Ireland team, I went into the office at 6 a.m. so that I could catch them and more of their working hours. So I got to dodge some of the traffic, not coming home. It was amazing that rush hour starts at 2 p.m. in Southern California. But I was considering, hey, what does a role that's maybe a little bit closer to home look like? And so I started looking at the tech companies right in my backyard. There wasn't that many. Long Beach is kind of in between Orange County and Los Angeles. So most of the companies gravitate towards one of those two talent pools. But there was a company that was 10, 15 minutes down the street. And I reached out to them. I actually had an old connection, someone I went to college with that I had a relationship with. And I reached out to them and they said, yeah, come on in. Let's interview. So I came to a decision because I ended up getting an offer from both of those companies at the same time.
Now, at this point in time, you would consider Blizzard like a dream job? It was close, the type of company, the type of work. Were you getting close to that?
So you were asking about career aspirations earlier. Yeah. I had checked the Blizzard job page, their job board page, over 100 times at least.
Oh my goodness.
And I had usually checked it in the vein of marketing roles, but I didn't really know that they had the equivalent of a product manager. They called it, I think, program manager, like it's more of a game lead, but they had the same type of role. And so that friend of mine reached out to me to be essentially the product manager for the team that he worked on. So it would be getting to work on the sites, some of the game sites for some of the video games that I grew up playing, and for BlizzCon, their big annual conference. And yeah, if you would have asked high school Ian, in fact, I've answered this question before, my dream job would be to work at Blizzard, and not specifically any video game company. Maybe I would have said making video games, but specifically I always gravitated toward Blizzard because those games meant a lot to me. And I played almost every title that they had. I spent a lot of time playing.
So here we are,
those games.
12, 14 years after high school, at least a dozen years after high school. It's close to home. It's the type of work that you do. You're an expert at what you do. It's the type of product that you're like, I've always wanted to work in this industry. And you've got to have half dozen people all saying, are you crazy? Say yes before they change their mind. But you started to process it. So what was the processing like? And tell us about the decision.
Rick, my wife told me I was crazy. Okay.
Wow, so it's not only everyone, but like when she says, I mean, of course you're going to say yes, right?
That was the response. Of course you're going to say yes. How could you say no to this? I was known for being a video gamer. My nieces and nephews, I remember one of my wife's sisters telling me, my son, like, you are his hero. You're a high functioning adult that still plays video games. You grew up playing video games. You love video games. Like, you are his hero. He wants to be like you with a good job, but still functional and playing video games and getting to do that. So yes, this was everyone I knew that I talked to, I told them about it and they were like, awesome.
So it's a true defining moment for you.
When are you starting?
It's 12 years in, and this is the moment everyone would say yes, but you didn't say yes.
I did not say yes.
Why did you not say yes?
So I spent about 2 weeks as I was getting this offer from the other company, basically talking myself out of it. And the piece where, for me, the push-go moment happened 6 months earlier.
Wow.
And the piece that was really behind the scenes that most people didn't know about, because when a lot of people hear about career decisions that people make, or, hey, you took this job or that job, they only see the job. They see the title. They know the company. They don't know the company. They analyze it in one dimension. One dimension. We don't live our lives in one dimension.
I like that.
So when we make decisions for our own career and life, we have to consider all of that. So I worked through essentially an Excel chart, and I put at least 15 different criteria. Weighted
averages, the whole thing, right? You're ministering to me right now.
Yeah. So I looked at, from a long-term career standpoint, obviously this other company I was looking at didn't have, Blizzard was the number one. They just got acquired, or they're in the process of getting acquired by Microsoft. Number one video game company in the world. Amazing from a career standpoint. I can do a lot with that. The salaries were comparable. And I was looking at, hey, who would my boss be? What I like from what I know in the tiny little bit of an interview. So I was trying to analyze it on all these different metrics, but I also put in the metrics of, would this be good for my family? Would this be good for me? And those ones were the ones that got weighted a little bit more based on the decision 6 months earlier, because 6 months earlier, I had made a decision to quit video games entirely.
Wow. So let's pause on that for a second. So outside person looking in is like career trajectory. Of course you would go down this path. So it sounds like you're getting ready to enter into a world where you're going to convince people to play even more video games.
100%.
But you've made the decision 6 months prior to stop. So, I mean, there's a ton of people that play video games. I mean, people play video. I mean, so are you like a weekend guy? You're playing it every now and then? I mean, so you say quit video games. I mean, I quit drinking, carbonated sodas 6 years ago. Big decision for me.
Good for you.
Great decision. Yeah. But you say quit playing. So kind of give me some perspective when you say quit. How was that really impacting your life? And what did it look like?
So back in college, I played a lot of video games in high school, but they didn't really impact me. They weren't impacting my relationships. They weren't having a negative effect on me. In college, I started playing a game made by Blizzard called World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And I spent some time in the World of Warcraft. I was playing 6-7 days a week, 12 to 14-hour days on the days that I could. So I would load up all my classes 2 days a week, and it got bad for about a year. It wasn't really affecting my school, but I'd hit a Friday night, and I could go hang out with my friends, and I begrudgingly would go hang out with my friends. I really wanted to just hang out in the World of Warcraft. And that started to scare me. I was Googling video game addiction. I was saying, hey. is this a problem? And
it's a phase in your life, right? You're 20, 21.
Yeah.
Once you get to the real world, get married, start a career, all that'll go away, right?
Not
maybe.
So
much.
Maybe the habits that we create growing up oftentimes just get amplified. Maybe they get sidelined, but maybe they come up later when we're at a different phase. And so for me, I quit, 5 years ago now, video games. And at that point, I wasn't playing World of Warcraft. I quit playing World of Warcraft in college because it was such a problem. But I didn't quit all video games. And when I became a dad, I shifted from, I don't have time to sit in front of a desktop computer and play 30, 45 hour long game. I started playing games on my phone, little mobile games, 3 minutes at a time. And those things are just terrible for you. And I remember specifically, I was sitting next to my daughter. She was about 6 months old. And I'm instinctively hiding my little, I think it was Clash Royale, like a little 3-minute game. I'm hiding my phone on the opposite side of my body because I don't want my daughter to see me, even subconsciously, being the dad that's ignoring her, playing video games.
That's a moment.
But that's exactly what I was doing, Rick. I was ignoring my daughter playing video games. And when does that stop? When they're 2, 3, 5? And so I went up to, it was a men's retreat through my church. And the pastor speaker was talking to us about killing the idols or getting rid of the things that you are prioritizing incorrectly in your life. And I didn't have a prioritization problem. I didn't have an idol. If I did, it was video games, but I didn't have one.
Right.
I did. And it was at that retreat that I finally decided, putting it all away, deleting everything off my phone, putting everything, even my computer, my Xbox, my PlayStation, my Wii, all the just junk I had acquired. Had a lot of fun playing, but it was not the priority for me and was just a distraction. And the real world implications of that was I was staying up too late. I was tempted to play a video game instead of hanging out, investing in my relationship with my wife. And now I'm facing, hey, I want to be known as a good dad. I want to be a good father. And this is a clear fight for my attention that was winning. And so that all happened 6 months prior to me getting that job offer at Blizzard. And I still remember it. My friend who worked there, he called me up to congratulate me on getting the offer. And I said, hey, Mike, I'm not taking it. And he was like, what? Exactly. And I told him what was going on. I told him, hey, I just quit video games. And he's like, it's like the devil's tempting you, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, Mike, that's exactly what it is. The devil is tempting me to get right back into the world of video games. And it was, for me, that was that push-go moment. And am I going to jump back in here, or am I going to stick with the conviction that I want to be a husband and a father, and my career is going to be secondary to those things? I wanted to choose family over what, man, I wanted it. I know I would have enjoyed working at Blizzard so much. And those were all the pluses in that.
But even if you'd gone with Blizzard and kept from playing the games yourself, you're still.
I'm promoting to millions of people, go play these games. This is how you should spend your life.
Yeah. So it truly was, I used the word ethical, but it was a moral, ethical thing saying, is this something I want to stand for?
Absolutely.
And so that helped you make the decision. A lot of people have other industries they simply don't want to work in for those reasons. So you're making that call. So it wasn't just like you took another job. This was a big change for you, because right on top of that, you're getting ready to relocate. So you said no to the dream job. You had just finished up with, I'm walking away from gaming. So that changed your life dramatically. And then you and your family, you and Haley, decided to make a location move for another important reason that kind of took you down the path of creating your own firm. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that decision-making. So you said no to Blizzard, then what happened?
I took the other position, the other job offer that I had, and it was that local company in Long Beach, and worked for them for a few years. And then the pandemic hit, and I had been working out of my bedroom close to a year, I want to say, at that point.
Before it was cool, you were working out of your house, right?
Yeah, well, everybody had to work out of their house. Yeah. And I had a pretty good setup for it, but that's besides the point. The point was my wife then said, hey, just on a whim, what do you think about moving to Arkansas? And my father-in-law lives here, and we wanted to make good use of the time with his health and have the grandkids spend time with him. And so I thought about it and prayed about it, and we made the move. And I think for me, a big part of that decision was the same type of thing, of that decision back to, hey, do you want to move into product management? And a lot of times when we make big decisions in life, we think they're permanent. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily permanent. Sometimes you make a big decision and you're not going to move yourself back out of it. But we went into it knowing, hey, maybe we move here. Mm-hmm. We're not married to Arkansas. We will spend the time here. We want to be here to spend quality time with the kids, grandpa, with my father-in-law, and let's go for it.
Yeah. So again, it's relationship driven. So it's location agnostic to some degree. He could have been anywhere. Mm-hmm. The point is, he moved closer, and especially for folks are listening through about the kind of the job progression, the decision you made, being confident enough in your skill set to know that even though you may have passed up what would seem as the dream job, yeah, you knew you could still be successful at your trade based on what you were doing because of the skill set you had acquired. And I love that point you made, is that it's not permanent, because oftentimes, and I've been through this, like, oh, if I make this decision, it's going to impact me forever. And there's a few of those that happen in our life. I mean,
you moved overseas, right?
Moved overseas. And, we went down that path that said, hey, let's lean in. We did a 2-year contract, and we started at part of a third, said, this will be the greatest 3 or 4 years of our life. It's not forever, and make a decision after that. So I love how you're going through that decision-making, is that it's going to be okay. We're going to be able to make a decision. And now that you're in this stage in your life, it's not forever, but it's the right decision now. But coming with that was, you're still an expert at what you do. So you didn't simply bounce around to other type of roles. You were able to stay in this world of product management. My assumption would be it's fairly intuitive or realistic that you could do that remotely with any company. It doesn't require you to be physically on location all the time.
Correct.
So speak a little bit about what you're doing now. So you're working out of your house here in Arkansas versus Long Beach, or from,
yes,
Southern California. So talk a little bit about that work and what it's like to engage, and kind of the work you're doing today.
So I shifted from doing product management within a company to being a product management consultant.
Now, did you still work with that company when you moved here? Would you kind of on the side a little bit? Were you able to transition?
It was...
they were your first client?
They were my first client.
Okay.
It was one of the easiest transitions.
But that's really smart for people listening, to leave on great terms. And if you're good at what you do, you could work something like that out. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I got to work with them, and I've gotten to work with, through another friend of mine, an agency working with startups. And it's been a ton of fun, and the level of flexibility of being a consultant and getting to kind of control your own hours. Man, it's great with young kids. I feel so fortunate and blessed to be able to have this job transition, and be able to make this move at the life stage that I'm at. Mm-hmm. And it really is kind of scary, because when I was 18, I had this vision for my life, and it's all played out kind of eerily, where I wanted to go to college, get that general business degree. I wanted to work at a small company, worked for a startup, wanted to work for a big company, got to work for a Fortune 500, and I wanted to work for some medium-sized companies, and I've gotten to work with them. And then at some point in my 30s, I wanted to start my own business, because growing up, my dad had always talked about wanting to shift into consulting. Mm-hmm. Hey, I've been doing this. I can continue to do this in my area of expertise. It gives me a ton of flexibility. Mm-hmm. I would love to pursue other things, whether it be ministry, whether it be nonprofit, whether it be other just uses of my time outside of just working. And my dad never did that. He stayed in with his company, but he always talked about wanting to do it. So that was always a seed planted in my mind that that's something I wanted to pursue, and God opened the doors for it. I didn't pursue it with this radical focus. I just kind of took the opportunities that aligned with my overall plan as they came. Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, I've seen you as the dad. I've seen you in the product world. But I also love the nonprofit piece, because not only were you an expert in product management, you're also kind of an expert in gaming, or what not to do in that same phase. So tell me a little bit about that nonprofit and what it looks like if someone wanted to engage you to saying, I don't want to admit that I have a problem, but I do. So how would I engage with you? What would that look like?
Absolutely. My wife and I started a nonprofit called SelfCtrl, self and then CTRL, like the control button on the keyboard. Thank you. And that was birthed out of me quitting video games and then talking to people about it. Because I knew if I was going to be serious about this, I needed to tell people, hey, I quit video games, because it adds that layer of accountability. But what it also did was people started talking to me. People said, hey, can you talk to my nephew? Can you talk to my niece? Can you talk to me? I can't stop hitting Pokemon balls. I'm playing Pokemon Go while I'm changing my daughter's diaper. So I'm talking to absolutely people that are professionals working, and we grew up playing video games, and now we're out in the working world, and we have almost this hidden problem. So I've gotten to mentor adults and teens. I even got to talk to a 65-year-old elder in his church who is just whispers to me, I'm on level 6,528 of this game he's playing. Oh. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, and then he starts rationalizing and justifying and telling me all the reasons why it's good for him. And he just does it when he's killing time in between activities. Anyway, so I've gotten to talk to a lot of people about that. So you can engage with me through our website, selfcontrol.com. We're looking to add this year, what we hope to add is free counseling. So covering the cost of counseling for people who are struggling with video game addiction or looking to make a change. We also have some guides for parents on there and some other tools and resources to help people really replace the habits that they have around technology and redeem that time for doing good instead. That's our mission and our vision with SelfCtrl, is to redeem the time from technology for doing good works instead.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's a great way for us to finish up today, but we'll have all the information in the show notes. But just if someone wanted to have a cup of coffee with Ian, either virtual or in person, what's the best way to engage you? And explain again how they can look at SelfCtrl and how can they get engaged with that?
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also, if you'd like to reach out to me about SelfCtrl, you can go to our website or you can email me. It's really difficult. Ian@SelfCtrl, selfCtrl.com. Or if you want to engage with me about business, you can email me at product@ianmccready.com or visit my website, ianmccready.com, if you want to talk to me about product things.
Fantastic. Ian, it was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Push Go, a podcast highlighting the defining moments that impact how we live and work. It was great to have Ian on the show today. If you like what you heard, you can find more stories just like this on listen.plumshop.com. And hey, we wouldn't be mad if you left us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Now we have new episodes that drop every Wednesday, and if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe.